From the Clock Tower, this is the C.S. Lewis Book Club.
The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Alex. Welcome to our book club. We've been on a walking tour through Middle-earth. We followed the Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, from the doorstep of his hobbit hole, over hill and under tree, to the dungeons of the Lonely Mountain and back again. But a new adventure is calling, and our road continues ever on and on.
Pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way where many paths and errands meet, and whither then I cannot say.
In this episode, we'll be talking about our experience in The Hobbit and prepare for the adventure of The Lord of the Rings. If you haven't read The Hobbit yet, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want that, pause here and go read. We'll be waiting right here for you when you get back. We'll try not to spoil anything about The Lord of the Rings, but Alex and I have already started reading it, so no promises.
Yeah, and as you'll find out later, I'm good at spoiling.
So good. But you also make things awesome, so.
Well, how do you like the music for this episode?
You know I'm always a fan of the music you produce.
Yeah, well, this is from Clamavi De Profundis, and this song is specifically called The Road, or Roads Go On and On. Oh, I should make sure I get that one right.
And I feel like
the road goes ever on. Roads go on and on, yeah.
I feel like people should know there was a bit of time between our last recording and doing this, and Alex really went ham on
Well, we had
preparing, and you got people's approval to use the music we're using in the podcast. So,
well,
cool.
We had a couple of dates that we were going to record, and those didn't work out for us. So
mostly because of me. All because of
me. This season has kind of been like that. It's been this, hey, let's do this thing, and okay, and we get the thumbs up, and then time passes and more time passes before we ever even get down to it. And that's kind of what I'm excited about this episode for. This is a special episode. This is one of the linking episodes between two different books that we're covering. I like these. I feel like there's a little bit more creative wiggle room, sub-creative wiggle room for those in the know. And sub-creative, because we're still drawing on other sub-creators. But what I'm excited about this episode is because whenever we talk about a book, I'm always like, oh, why didn't we talk about that? Or there's always more. And I'm still going to feel that after this one. But this is a special episode where we talk about The Hobbit a little more, maybe some things that really affected us. And when we decided to continue the podcast after our third season, which was our journey of Christian conversion, it felt like we didn't have anywhere else to go, because I just wanted to do the fiction from C.S. Lewis, partially because I don't think he wanted to get too analytical about that. And J.R.R. Tolkien's even more that way. He really doesn't like the analysis part. So we're doing something he is decidedly against, or was decidedly against. And I'm all right with that. I think I'm just going to accept it. We're being analytical about things that should be more just experiential. But we're showing our experience, right? You're looking like I'm on a different path than you.
Well, from my perspective, I mean, Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, but he also wrote his essay on fairy worlds.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was the name of the essay?
On fairy stories, yeah.
And so he got very analytical about this desire to create Lord of the Rings and these other worlds and this entire... So I don't know if he would hate this.
Yeah.
He would hate this if the analytical piece took you away from the story. But that's what I love. The format of this is go get into the story and then come talk about it.
Yeah.
Like that's why I didn't think people would listen to this podcast, is because we ask a lot as far as go read Lord of the Rings and come back and listen to a podcast.
Yeah, and I guess it would be more of a problem if we were telling people how they should think and feel about it. but really we're just kind of telling
How we
think and feel about it. That's right. So after that third season, it was like 2 years ago, almost. Was it?
I
No.
thought about that when I was walking up to this little recording studio in your
Yeah.
backyard. It's like I have spent a crazy amount of time. You know those bubble charts you fill out for every week of your life? I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder how many of those bubbles are we filling in just like in this room.
A considerable amount
It's
of our
weird.
lives has been wasted. I took your best years.
No. No one could ever convince me that season 3 of C.S. Lewis Book Club was a waste of my life.
But so afterward, I was kind of in a lull. I don't know if you felt that too. Almost like we lost something that was, I didn't realize how big of a part it was playing. And granted, back then we were doing an episode a week, which is a lot.
It was a lot.
It was like, and that's with you being like 5 times busier than me anyway. So it was more on you than it was on me. But I want to tell the story of what the impetus for this new season was. And it started with my son Theo having a gathering of homeschoolers. And it was on Valentine's Day.
Like any good adventure begins.
That's right, exactly. And he wanted a poem, and I had been reading The Lord of the Rings out loud to them every night. And so I was like, we got to do the road poem, the walking song. And that's the verse that we just listened to. So he memorized that and performed it. But before he memorized it, I wanted to find a song. I wanted to get him pumped up about it. I wanted him really to be familiar so he could identify it with it. Because more than just a poetry read, I wanted him to feel this. I mean, I got really animated talking to him about it because it says down from the door where it began. And this is the song that if you watch the movies, the Lord of the Rings movies, Gandalf is introduced to us riding in on a carriage, and he is singing this song to himself. So this road song, the walking song, becomes something almost thematic for the characters themselves. And I was talking to Theo and just like, all of your life, from a very boiled down perspective, starts right here at our doorstep. I even took him to the doorstep and said, this right here connects to a bigger road, and that road to other roads. You can go anywhere in the world, and it starts right here. This is the adventure, but you're going to have to leave the comfort of home. And so I'm looking for songs on Spotify because I know that this has been put into many different musical iterations. And I found this version by Clamavi De Profundis that puts all the different verses, well, not all of them, but all the main ones together. And they did such a good job that by the end of listening to it through like the 5th time, I'm lying on the ground. I have had one of these seemingly reoccurring experiences with this podcast where I'm lying on the ground and like tears are streaming down my face on both sides. And I'm like, this is it. This is everything, and just realizing the mythological significance that Tolkien put into these poems. And then it opened my mind up more to all the songs in these books serve that purpose. The mythologizing, the mythologizing of the story, and kind of like, yeah, he didn't want to do allegory, but it's allegorical. And so to see these stories, and in The Hobbit, which we just finished reading, it's so well encapsulated into this hero's journey. That's another version of this sort of thing. Sorry, I'm getting scattered just because I'm getting overwhelmed with being brought back to that space mentally. But this version of the song, and that's just the first verse that we listened to, really is kind of the thesis for why we're continuing this podcast and why we decided to, go out of the bounds of C.S. Lewis works into Middle Earth. But one thing that C.S. Lewis said in his review of The Lord of the Rings is, it has done things to us. We are not quite the same men. And that's just so true for me. And that's where the contemplation, experience, enjoyment, where it all kind of gets mixed up, whatever it is, I'm so glad that I've been reading the book. And what do you want to do when you've just experienced something profound? Is share it. So that's where I'm coming from with this episode anyway.
I had a different experience coming off of season 3. I think that was creating those first 3 seasons, going through the works of C.S. Lewis had been. I was a different man after having gone through that and read that and talked about it, and I didn't want it to stop. I just, this is growing. This is so cool. And by this is growing, I mean, I feel like I was experiencing personal growth. And so I was disappointed and disillusioned when Alex told me that he wanted to pause. And then I was really excited when he called me and said he wanted to ramp it up again.
Yeah, and it still took us quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
I guess, that's the problem with having other things to do, is you're not really getting back to, or we don't have taskmasters keeping us on schedule. And so for better or for worse. But anyway, so do you have any other housekeeping besides that long intro?
Nope, no housekeeping. What do you have?
Just a little bit more that, I have a note here that we do have an agenda. And the agenda is to change you, right? But not us, the stories. To be this like access point. I was thinking about this the other day. There was a podcaster, and it sounds kind of cliche to talk about a podcaster, but the way I was introduced to this podcaster was he had just made a comment on X or something about a song he was listening to. And I listened to the song, and he just saying that he liked it. And I listened to the song, and I thought, I like that song too. And so then I looked at that guy's podcast, and then he became like this really important, hopeful source. I think in a sea of pessimism and darkness in our world, to find the sources of light and goodness is just always nice. And just funny that it was just through this weird avenue, or this almost seemingly happenstantial access point, that I found something really, really beautiful that I loved. I'm sure there's a similar experience that I had with Tolkien or with Lewis, and maybe we can be that to somebody. I don't know. If somebody comes across our podcast and they're like, oh, these guys take these books really seriously, maybe I'll take a look at it. Right there is all we're really trying to do. So we do have an agenda, though.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what the agenda. Yeah, that's 100%. The reason, I think, for years before we kicked off the book club, we'd have conversations about books or things. A lot of times C.S. Lewis came up during those conversations, and it was a feeling of, our conversations have helped me in my perspective, how I approach life. It's helped me see the stone as more stony, again from the fairy essay, but just that real art myth helps us experience realities that otherwise, without it, we wouldn't be able to access or grasp. And so that really was, hey, this gives me access to an understanding and an experience and a knowledge that I wouldn't have just come across had I not read the books and had the conversations with you and everything else. And then when you have something good, I want other people to have it too. I want other people to be happy in their homes and families and whatever else. So
yeah, it's been a while since I read that essay, but that did remind me, what you said reminded me of something Lewis said about young boys reading about enchanted woods. It does not disenchant real woods to them. In fact, it gives them this magical perspective to go in and almost imagine that the woods that are in their backyard are just as magical as the ones that they've read about. And that, there's a lot there. Hopefully this type of good, true mythology-based fantasy, these books will help enchant your real world instead of disenchant it, like I think more the fake, non-true mythology might. So,
yeah.
Should we take a break? I'm going to do an ad for Theo's podcast.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Theo, and I have a podcast called The Theo Show, where me and my dad talk about interesting things we're learning and try to understand them better. It's a short, fun podcast for kids and parents to enjoy together. And if you like learning new things in a simple way, this podcast is for you. So after this episode, go check out The Theo Show on Spotify or Apple Podcast. See you there.
Okay, welcome back.
Welcome. Are you going to take a shot at our summary?
Yeah, I'll do it because
You wrote it.
At the end of The Hobbit, Bilbo sings a song memorializing his journey to the Lonely Mountain and back again. This walking song, known and treasured among Bilbo's devoted admirers, foreshadows a connection between his own journey and his younger cousin Frodo's later adventure to Mount Doom. Through its subsequent iterations and verses, the song forms a poetic motif that provides generalizable perspectives, mythological significance, and lends both tales allegorical applicability to the lives of its readers.
All right. I thought that was great. What themes do you have?
I have the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell.
Yep.
As explained in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And he identifies different archetypes for mythologies that are generalizably applicable. That every good story, and he's talking about stories and mythologies, but I actually think that it applies. I think a good story is good because it's true. And not that it's historically, factually true, but deeper than that, it's true. It's true about existence. It has an ontological and existential truth to it. And I actually think that the Hobbit is probably my favorite version of that hero's journey.
It is your favorite, the favorite.
As far as a concise and easily identifiable hero's journey, I think that's kind of how The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings differ a little bit. You have more of a template in The Hobbit. They're kind of the same story. I mean, I don't. Some people are hearing that and like bristling. They're not the same story. But as we're the thesis of this episode, where we're talking about the walking song and the different parts or aspects of or verses of that. The verses in the Hobbit apply very well, even more accurately to the Lord of the Rings. So the elements, the thematic elements, and some of the archetypes that we see in the Hobbit, they apply to the Lord of the Rings. But it's kind of harder to find in the Lord of the Rings is far deeper, and it's drawing from the Middle Earth legendarium a little more fully than the Hobbit is. The Hobbit kind of stands alone. You could read the Hobbit and never anything around it, but the Lord of the Rings kind of is like, oh, there's more to this. You know, you start getting a little bit of a peek into the deeper mythology that Tolkien created, and it almost fills your mind with this a spirit of exploration. It gives you tookishness. It makes you want to see the story deeper. So that's why I say The Hobbit is my favorite of the hero's journey, just because it's like, oh, you want to know the hero's journey? A lot of people will like say Star Wars, right? Star Wars kind of shows elements of the hero's journey, and George Lucas intentionally followed Campbell's hero's journey while he made that story. So that's kind of an intentional use of that. But The Hobbit, and they were contemporaries, but I don't think that Tolkien was even. I'm not sure if he knew who Joseph Campbell was, but it still follows exactly that path of mythology, and that's largely because, well, I would say because it's true, and because Tolkien is drawing from established myths, like even the names of characters in The Hobbit are drawn from the Poetic Edda, which is the mythology of Iceland, and so there's like. He's more steeped in actual mythology than we are in his works. Right. So
Yeah,
that's his
100%. Yeah.
expertise, and that's what he's drawing from. So it's not
That's the feeling you get when you read C.S. Lewis is this guy's gone so deep.
Right.
You're just barely scratching the surface when you ride along with his books.
right.
Yeah.
So that's one of my themes. Yeah.
All right.
Do you want me to go through all of mine, or do you want?
I want you to go through all of
Okay.
these.
I also have familiarity versus exploration, and this is another take on the Tooks Baggins's. Baggins's, is that how Gollum says it?
Baggins.
Tooks and Baggins's juxtaposition is the home that you're in, the last homely home, and the familiarity and all of joy. I think we mislabeled dopamine as like the pleasure neurotransmitter, and that's just the repeater one. It just takes whatever behavior you're doing and it says do that again as many times as possible. That's why you can do this grind on like a iPhone game that's not even fun, and it takes hours and leeches out of your time and productivity, and you didn't even enjoy it. But why did
You got a lot of dopamine.
That's right. Why did
Yeah.
you keep doing it? And ADHD being more of a dopamine addiction than anything else. But it's oxytocin that is the real pleasure neurotransmitter, and oxytocin is the neurotransmitter of relationship and familiarity. That if you want something to feel good, to be good, to give you sense of meaning, it's home, it's your family, and some of the less productive desires and feelings that we have, you could call it nostalgia, kind of take advantage of that feeling and maybe send you in a different direction of non-productivity. But I don't want to identify productivity as some sort of unequivocal good.
This makes me think about both the Tooks and the Bagginses, the familiarity, the exploration, both good. All good comes from God.
Yes.
And it's when we root ourselves in, if you're too much like the hobbits, where you're all about the comforts and you're not willing to go on the journey that you're called to, then that's where you start to go awry. Or if you're obsessed with the next dopamine hit, the next adventure, and you need to find that relationship and familiarity, put your roots down, kind of masculine, feminine. Like, I think that's when you don't have both, then that's where you're getting lost.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And there is kind of a paradox. I have this written later, but I think this might be a good time to bring it up, or at least to tease it a little bit. There is kind of a paradox with the comfort of the Shire and the necessity to journey to the mountain. And you see that, there's a little teaser, you see that a little bit in The Lord of the Rings. We find out that the reason the Shire can exist
is because the
Aragorn
Aragorn types are out there keeping them safe. Yeah,
that's right. And I'll tease a little bit to another, maybe not another theme, but this is something we'll talk in the next half.
You big tease.
I know. Been called it before. Is what is the responsibility of like men, the Rangers of the North. And we see that in another character in Tom Bombadil. And so there is this paradox where it's like, well, what's the good? Is the good the adventure, or is the good the comfort? And your comfort will stagnate unless it's broken up by periods of adventure. And so stagnation and stability or security are almost kind of opposites. And the men in Middle Earth have the strange gift of mortality. And I think to look even deeper into the Middle Earth legendarium, this conflict, not a conflict, but it's a comparison of the immortality of the elves and the ephemerality of men, and realizing that there's so much good that ephemerality sparks in us. The fact that things will not continue indefinitely as they are. and what does that call us to do? So it's a deep one. Familiarity versus exploration. I think familiarity, seeing that as a desirable good and also the way to maintain it by encountering the strange and exploring in the unknown, is for what's the thing to hope for, the journey to hope, is familiarity is that good you're seeking, but it can only be accessed through the willingness to leave it.
Yeah, and when we get into our kind of the meat of the content, that is one area it feels this. I think in Pilgrim's Regress, there's someone that kind of talks about like it's not about the destination, like you just it's all about just
it's Great Divorce, right?
Okay,
Great Divorce. One of the ghosts says to his angelic guide, To journey hopefully is better than to arrive.
Yes. And so that's where does C.S. Lewis differ from Tolkien there, where Tolkien focused more on the journey, whereas C.S. Lewis seemed like he was more further up, further in, going towards a destination?
No, I think this is Tolkien making that point. He's just calling the journey this. It's like the destination is. And these books are full of an idea of a destination. With Middle Earth, we're constantly reminded that we don't know if we'll make it, and that it's still worth going, even if it seems hopeless. And they're good stories; they have good endings. So, spoiler. But the ending is. I'm just saying it's more of this cycle. It's this circle like the hero's journey, where coming back home is the destination. Not in a way where it like detracts from some great further up and further in type of destination. But even in the last battle, the destination was Narnia. Not Narnia as they knew it. Narnia even deeper what they knew. That's the familiarity. It's not going back to the Narnia that you left, even though you're coming back to the location that you left. But it's bigger and deeper and fuller. It's more real. It's more home than home. It's more oxytocin than your brain can create, right? Yeah, I'm stretching that analogy a little too far. But no, they would totally agree on that. In fact, what is the destination? If your belief is heaven, and you think of heaven as this place you've never been to, I think you're thinking about it wrong.
No, it's further up and further in. It's closer and closer and closer to what is pure truth, pure light, pure goodness. And so as you go through this expedition, home familiarity, going through the expedition part strengthens you, builds character, teaches you, helps create the walls, keeps out the bad, come back in, you bring that home, you create a better home, a stronger home. And
yeah, that's what I think that preposition in is for. It's not further up and further out. It's further up and further in, to see that identity and being is our purpose. But we can't find out who we are unless we go out on an expedition. I like that you use that word. That's a great word. An expedition to the fringes of our ability. And in reaching like that, we actually become more ourselves.
All right. That was a lot in themes.
Sorry.
Not a bad thing.
We've been stewing on this for a long time.
We did.
I've had a lot of time to think, and my brain is overpopulated with ideas, and that's a problem, actually.
So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. Oh, no? Do we just go straight in?
Well, because I think I accidentally put the break.
I don't mind.
Well, because
no, more stew now. Let's go.
So,
all right. So hold on. So jumping into this, the meat of it, you started with the song Down from the Door, okay? I'll be honest, for our pedestrian listeners who I am the proxy for on this podcast, when I first listened to this song, I'm like, all right, down from the door, like you're walking along the road, cool song. Like, did not immediately get the depth of the song.
Sure.
Did not leave me on the floor emotional, wiping tears off my face, which I said the same thing about
Till We Have Faces.
Till We Have Faces. And it took me 2 reads before that ending hit me in the face. So, I don't take that as any other thing than like, I'm excited to go through this now because I have seen some of that now, and you've obviously been on that journey. And so the hope is if you're listening to the song, you're just like, oh, cool song. There's more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just this one-off sort of haphazard fun rhyme.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think
not row, row, row your boat. This isn't just like a song to sing to pass the time while you're walking down the road.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake to read these books and skip the songs. And I understand, I think my first reading I probably did. I understand why you might. And even at the beginning of The Hobbit, where you have Far Over the Misty Mountain, right? That song that the dwarves sing. And even the silly song about that's what Bilbo Baggins hates, like the dwarves coming and messing up his house. It's fun, but it's intentionally putting you into this place where can you understand what Tolkien's trying to, he's helping you understand Bilbo better. That's true for me. I'm a little too fastidious. I'm a little too precious with things. And it's funny that word precious becomes this almost signal for danger later. But every song is helping you. When the elves are singing the song, they're just barreling up or putting the barrels down into the river. They don't know that the dwarves are in there. And they're basically singing the foreshadowing of this, where the dwarves are going. It works with their song, but obviously there's this fourth wall breaking kind of wink or nod, because they're kind of telling you the story of where these dwarves will go and why they're there.
I hadn't thought about this before, but the dwarves song, when they're kind of wrecking his house and disrupting his peace, there's not too much that's magical about the original. When you're introduced to the Shire and to the hobbits, they seem like little humans that live in the ground. But, you have this extremely peaceful life, not a whole lot of adventure. And then all of a sudden a wizard and dwarves show up at your house. And is your reaction to something that's completely unfamiliar and new and strange excitement that like, wow, life's about to get really exciting. This is totally new and foreign. Or is it, I'm upset you're messing up my kitchen?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like what's your, like, really, given how boring his life objectively probably was up to that point, he should probably be enjoying this.
Well,
something different.
Also think what the stagnation of domestic bliss can lead to is now he's put so much emphasis on his plates.
Yeah.
Right. And his food stores and that's the discomfort of being called to adventure, is letting go of all of these really worthless things that you've just learned to grip really tightly, because that's all all you have, basically.
And it makes sense. Getting called to adventure might look like getting fired from your job.
Yeah.
It might look like financial uncertainty. It might look like a lot of things that right now people would say, well, you should probably feel anxiety and depression and a lot of other things because of this thing that happened to you.
Yeah.
Versus,
because it's going to challenge all your justifications for your stagnation.
Yeah.
So the songs are important, and going through them, even if you don't really understand them, your subconscious might actually understand them a little more than your conscious mind, because I think we've kind of, in the way that C.S. Lewis pejoratively talked about enchantment, we've been enchanted by our modern world in a negative way. We need that disenchantment through fairy tale. One of the ways we've been enchanted is to see story, is to have certain expectations for good story. And it's just totally ruined modern movies. Every modern movie has all of these elements just to keep your attention, because our current entertainment style, like that, the Infinite Jest is just a constant bombardment and competition for attention and how long your eyes will linger on whatever 7-second reel or something. So I want to play that. I'm going to play that first verse again.
Good.
Should
I just went to search the lyrics for the song because there was a line in there when we first listened to it. Let's do it.
Okay.
The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can. Pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way where many paths and errands meet, and whither then I cannot say.
Sorry. I'm trying to like coyly gesture that that it's down at the bottom of our
You want to
notes.
see my computer?
Sorry, I totally distracted you from listening to the...
It's okay. I got the text in front of me.
Okay.
Because of you.
So maybe what would you have noticed again this time after our...
Yeah, so this time, the one of the phrases was eager feet. And earlier, before we started recording, as always, you guys missed the good part. But Alex was talking about the feeling you have when you wake up every morning, and how you approach the unknown of every single day. And I like the word eager, that you're eager to create, you're eager to go and experience. And then until it joins some larger way, when you were talking about how The Hobbit is this straightforward hero's journey, it's almost a perfect depiction of that. But then The Lord of the Rings is so much more complex. It's not necessary. Like, you can draw the line and it definitely fits, but you go off on all these branches and realize the depth of this world that he's created. And so
the
that
story even splits, right?
That's where I saw when until it joins some larger way where many paths and errands meet. And that's what that felt like Lord of the Rings. All those paths and journeys all culminating together. And some of them don't even meet by the end of the book, but you can see how they all are driving together. Like, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like?
When Frodo sings that song, he says weary feet instead of eager feet. Bilbo has eager feet.
Call me Bilbo.
Frodo has weary feet.
Well, he had a harder job.
Bilbo's more of a Took, and Frodo's a little bit more of a Baggins, which is interesting because we really get the Baggins-ishness from Bilbo.
Yeah.
That seems to be a real big theme, like he's being drawn out of it, but it seems to have stuck. And even at the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, he's like, I want to go on that adventure again, at least back to Rivendell, back to the last homely home, where the oxytocin is plentiful, you know?
Yeah.
And he's kind of done. But
so you do think, it sounds like, and I think I agree that Frodo's job seems way harder. Like, Bilbo's mission was a lot more like, go get the treasure. Yeah, there's a dragon there. We'll have to get past that, and we don't have a plan for that. But you know,
yeah, there's
Frodo's weary feet. Definitely during his journey, I'm like, I would.
Yeah, what's harder, the hard journey that you die, or the other journey that you die? I mean, like, they both had this perilousness. Think of,
I don't know, the whatever it is that's like anchoring you to the journey. I think is like Frodo. Did he ultimately think his journey would end in success?
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's my point. I'm not contradicting you. I'm saying the difference really is a perspective. It's an attitude. If there is a thematic difference between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, it's the perspective of the people on the journey. Bilbo is on an adventure. He's still a little reluctant. There's certain times where he says, not for the first time did he wish he were back in his Hobbit hole.
Smell of hot horse.
Exactly right. And so there were several times him being in the tunnel going down into the dungeon was the bravest thing he ever did.
Yeah.
And he's going to possibly death in the dungeon with a dragon. I mean, what could be more ominous than that sort of idea? But then you can say, yeah, but Frodo's journey is fraught with this sense of long defeat, as
Yes.
Tolkien's term. This idea that hopelessness.
Yes, Bilbo's didn't have the long defeat.
Yeah,
Yes, it seemed like a big obstacle, but everyone went into it just assuming that treasure was at the end.
Yeah, it was. There was even the whole reason for going was fortune seeking.
Yeah.
It wasn't because you're the only person who can do this thing or the world, gets destroyed, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it is an attitude. And I think that's true with people. Some people, I'm more like this. Some people wake up in the morning and they're like, oh no. And not that
I'm awake.
wake up with a start.
Didn't you show me that YouTube video?
Oh, possibly.
Or no. It was we went to the Nate Bargatze. It was the comedian who was talking about
That's right.
the morning people versus. That was good.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm more I wake up, and for me, if especially when I'm in my more curmudgeonly attitudes, which happen more frequently for me than for you, I'll exaggerate and say that the worst thing in the world is every morning, right? And like that is kind of the attitude of the Lord of the Rings. Is this hopelessness? It's not drudgery to get through the book. But you really feel that. You feel sorry for Frodo. I don't think you ever really feel sorry for Bilbo when you're reading it. Do you have that sense?
No.
It feels adventurous. It feels exciting and thrilling.
I feel sorry for Frodo pretty much from the beginning.
That's
he gets this dropped on him. He doesn't seem to want it. And, kudos, admiration to the fact that he
is very admirable.
The Knight of Infinite Resignation.
That's right. Yes, exactly. He's the Knight of Infinite Resignation. And that's what makes him the protagonist. And maybe that's a kind of hope for people with my temperament and perspective on the world is, okay, I hate everything, but at least I'm doing it, right? An appeal to heaven that I'm doing it. I'm doing the steps. I'm not a slacker. I'm baby stepping. And the Took side, or the Dan side, is more of the go on the adventure, seek your fortune. And sometimes there's a temptation for people like me to resent people like you for your energy, for your optimism, for your outlook. And I'm not defending my position. I'm just saying that see how both of these perspectives are important if you want to do the two types of people in this world. There are Bagginses and there are Tooks.
Yeah. Well, I want to put a positive spin on what Alex is describing his personality as, whereas Puddleglum.
Yeah.
This isn't a guy who woke up every morning and was like, today's going to be a great day.
Yes.
But he's the one you want with him when you're in the underworld. He's the one that because he was unwilling to detach himself from reality. He wanted to stay in that band of reality. That tide of reality wasn't a desire to bring people down or be Eeyore. And I don't know Eeyore's character well enough maybe to use that reference.
I think that works.
But when he is on the underworld, his unwillingness to let go of a grasp on truth is what held his small group through.
Yeah, if you want to understand both the tookishness and Bagginsishness, the silver chair.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling to say, well, it looks like the Tooks have it, all the good stuff. No, look what happens to Jill and Eustace on the road to Harfang.
Yep.
Is they hold a little too tightly to the tookishness and it becomes a problem. So yeah, there is good and bad to both, but I think it's really important to have both.
Yeah, a call to treasure, and I know we're a little bit looping back, but this just came to me. A call to treasure is very different than a call to duty. There was no treasure to gain from Frodo's journey. There was no You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a call to duty. He's doing this because it was supposed to benefit himself and others.
Right. Yeah, the duty or treasure. And that reminds me of Lewis's first and second things. Is I actually think there's more truth in the duty destination than in the treasure destination.
It's just funny because so often when we talk about heaven, it's that treasure destination.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, I want to get to the Hobbit verses in the Clamavi De Profundis version. The Hobbit verses come in the middle, and they very, very skillfully use a riff from, if you've seen the Hobbit movies, there's it doesn't play in the movie, but it's one of the theme, I think it's the theme song for the first Hobbit movie. Billy Boyd, who's the actor who plays Peregrine Took, he's also a singer, so he sings this song, and they weave in some of the lines from these verses. And there's a really catchy riff that they draw from. So I'm going to play these verses. There's a key change and everything, but they weave it really well. Maybe I'll have to play the whole song together later, but I'm going to play the first of Bilbo's song that he says as he's coming back finally to his hobbit hole.
Roads go ever, ever on, over rock and under tree, by caves where never sun has shone, by streams that never find the sea, over snow, by winter sown, and through the merry flowers of June, over grass and over stone, and under mountains in the moon.
So if you're wondering where those roads could take you, having been so full of the mythology through this song, I can't listen to that without getting chills. But there's still, it's interesting how much Silverchair comes into my mind about this, especially the uncertainty of things and the fluidity of the unknown and almost the lunacy of being unmoored with
streams
direction.
that never find the sea.
Oh man, that seems like so much of my when people tell you things will just work out, they're doing it with the benefit of hindsight. But in the process, so much of, I'm not even, we're not that old. We're still thriving in our youth to some extent. But doesn't it feel like a lot of your personal history had these things that you thought were going to define the rest of your life, the currents pulling you down that way, and it just doesn't go anywhere?
Yeah, big time. And some people are bent on still trying to force the stream back to the river and say that there was a purpose in the... No.
Right.
That's just part of being on the road.
Yeah, the path from the branch to the trunk is always a straight shot. But going from the trunk to whatever branch, think of all the forks that you have to go. A fork in the road is only a decision in one direction. Looking back at it is deterministic.
Yeah.
Right. Also, the caves where never sun has shone. That feeling that how many people have ever lived? But I've experienced situations where there were no answers, no precedent for what I'm experiencing, and trying to find, is there a source of wisdom to help me know what to do in this situation? Maybe there is, but I didn't have access to it. It felt dark, like the sun has never shone on that path.
Yeah. And the recognition that as you walk that path, you're passing by caves where never sun has shone. You are walking by these areas that have never been explored, and you'll never explore them.
Yeah.
and you keep going.
That reminds me. I don't know if have we talked about the Road Not Taken, Robert Frost poem.
We have. I don't know if on this podcast, but
Yeah,
outside of the podcast, yes.
the idea of it's one of the most misunderstood poems, and not, I wouldn't say ironically, but coincidentally, because I think Robert Frost intended for it to be misunderstood as a funny little nod to the thesis of that poem, where the whole poem is an excuse for somebody who didn't go on another path. It's this looking down from the end of the branch down to the trunk and saying, well, I actually chose the road less traveled. But if you read the poem more analytically with all of its verses, it betrays the idea that he's excusing the fact that you can't go down every path. So you try to make the one that you went down seem destined. And it's if you know more Robert Frost and if you've read more of his poems, that ironic spin to it is kind of one of his parts of his genius, of his poetry, is he's nuanced that way, where he's trying to give a little wink to intentionality. But it is kind of funny. It could be, and I hope I didn't ruin anybody's living room wall decal, but the road not it's called The Road Not Taken, not the road less traveled by. So
I like that. I also, if you may, just thinking about if you did stop and explore every single cave, the benefit of having a mission, a destination, whatever else, is because I think I'm trying to think of a character in C.S. Lewis that was the consummate has to explore every cave and so never actually makes it the journey.
Oh, well, it has to explore every cave. I'm just thinking of Diggory's Curiosity at the Bell.
Yeah.
Where it's not there's a line about many people being sorry for the action he took.
Yeah.
Because of his curiosity. The Merry Flowers of June, there's a lot of joys and pleasures in The Hobbit on the journey.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there are many joys and pleasures, at least for Frodo.
Rivendell, right? When they stopped briefly, that felt like he got to meet Bilbo, and I feel like there was a moment of joy and happiness for a second.
Yeah.
But no, not a lot of it.
Probably the companionship of Sam.
Yeah.
Was a joy for him, that even on these, however difficult the journey is, there's still joy, even acute joy in the moment.
Yeah. But however, in The Hobbit, Bilbo has like different moments where, he beats the spiders, he becomes the trusted guy for the dwarves. He has all these different victories all along the way.
And then Under Mountains and the Moon. I don't think I would appreciate that line if I hadn't read The Silver Chair. Under Mountains and the Moon, thinking of going to the Underland, and the moon signifying that silver or that Luna planetary spirit, and the confusion and the dreamlike experience, so that with the confusion, not only are there the difficulties, but it almost feels like you don't even understand what it was until you're looking back at it, because in the moment it's very confusing. You gonna play the next one?
Let's do it.
Roads go ever on, under cloud and under star. Yet feet that wandering have gone, turn at last to home afar. Eyes that fire and sword have seen, and horror in the halls of stone, look at last on meadows green, and trees and hills they long have known.
This one I think applies way more to Lord of the Rings than The
That's
Hobbit.
exactly what I was. When it talked about horrors in the halls of stone, I was like, I know he went into the mountain with the dragon, but that way more makes me think of when they go to Moria or whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting that he does mention in that first verse the difficulty, trotting over rock and under mountains and it being hard. But it's not until his way home that he's really willing to talk about the fire and sword and the horrors in the halls of stone. Like, the movies do such a good job with the Balrog, but maybe it's really having this verse in my mind and then being in Moria. It doesn't have the thrill, I guess, or the spectacle, but it's almost more frightening to read. And maybe it's just because you have Legolas there and Gandalf and they're scared. Maybe it's just that part where it's like, ooh, this is serious. But I wonder if there is significance to him even bringing it up only after he's noting that he's turned at last to home afar. Okay, I'm on my way home. Okay, we can finally talk about that.
Yeah.
I wonder if I've repressed some of my personal history because I'm not willing to talk about some of the traumas. But
Well, what are we? Are we on our journey towards the destination, or are we turning our feet home?
ooh,
When does that happen? 40? Is that
what that's all about?
Is that what 40 is about?
See, I don't know what's even my reluctance to admit that I might be on the way back already. In a lot of ways, as long as you're alive, you're not on your way back yet. Some
Spiritually or physically? Which one are we talking about? Both.
yeah.
But now all of a sudden, turn at last to home afar feels like to finally really be baptized, to finally really die.
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to get, trying to create analogy here. Tolkien would strike me down, but I'm just saying, like, it isn't until we've gone through that process that then we get to come back and look at the landscape with Slickenstein's Salga and see things as they really are, and then you see the fire and the sword, you see the landscape, and you still have a huge journey ahead. You still have to slay the dragon. You still have all of that ahead of you, but your feet are at least turned towards home.
Yeah.
And anyways, that
There is a baptism in The Hobbit.
what?
Even when Bilbo's
What?
talking to Smaug.
What are we talking about?
when Bilbo's talking to Smaug, he calls himself
Like a Nacho
The
Libre baptism? Was it sneaky and I missed it?
kind of. He says, "I bury my friends in the water and bring them out again," because he puts them in a barrel and dunks them in the water.
Oh yeah.
And that's how he identifies himself, as somebody who buries his friends and pulls them out again.
Cool.
So there's a lot of, I mean, it's not in your face. That's the thing. That's why Tolkien didn't like allegory. Like, too much of the modern agendas in our entertainment is if there's any allegorical element, they have to like shove it in your face, where there's no nuance at all. There's no interpretation. It's just how obvious some of the allusions are, and the fact that you can read through this book with Christianity on the mind and see it as a hero's journey that involves a death and resurrection as part of that Joseph Campbell cycle. And right at that place in the book, there's a literal dunking in water and drawing back out again. And you might actually, your conscious mind might miss that, oh, he just baptized the dwarves.
So I've been reading, it's the author of The Black Swan, Nassim Taleb.
Yeah.
And I'm reading, what's the name of the book?
Skin in the Game.
Skin in the Game. And at the very beginning, he explains that when you try to over-explain a thing, it loses meaning and significance. And I see that happen at church when we just get up and just like say, Jesus, 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 like this. And I don't want to use that sacrilegiously, but just, I feel like we just think if we say the words enough that all of a sudden it will have meaning.
Yeah.
Versus what he's talking about an economic principle, but like all I could see was like we do this all the time versus talking about what he says is you need to go into the branches of different applications of how it actually ties back into, and that's like where the meaning is created when you do that. And I think that is a good explanation for what mythology does for us and why Tolkien hated analogy so much, is because analogy tries to tie one-to-one, some logical tie to the physical world. And it doesn't open you up to new explanations, new understanding. Versus mythology, it has that flexibility. And so, yes, we see this and we're like, oh, baptized barrels, but it's a new, now we get he's not looking for that literal tie. He's looking for your spirit and your mind to dwell on that. And I think it will open up a new world like that, that back to the essay, but that it's pushing us to become creators of our own mythology tied to truth, true mythology. No.
Yeah. I think fake mythology only has meaning in 3 dimensions. It only fits as a puzzle piece. See, I have an explanation for this.
Yes.
Look, this is that. History repeats itself, and so what we're seeing is the resurgence of the thing that we already have the story for. But I think true mythology is almost 4th dimensionally applicable, where we don't even understand. It's truer than we have the ability to explain, and so it becomes generalizable to things that we couldn't have predicted it would be applicable to.
Yes.
And so it's almost like applicable in several different dimensions instead of just this equals that.
Yes. There's more here. I feel like I need to write an essay on this, but I feel like there's a lot of me here, and I want to, anyways, this is good.
This episode is brought to you by Eating the Frog. Did you know that sometimes we have to do things that seem really hard or that we just don't want to do? Mark Twain once said if you have to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. Now, he didn't mean actually eat a frog. He was just using that as a metaphor for a hard thing to do that you might want to avoid. Maybe it's cleaning your room, doing your homework, or helping out with chores. Whatever it is, when you do the tough stuff first, everything else feels easier. So next time you have something you don't want to do, try eating the frog and get it done. Okay, now back to the show.
And we're back. Now we get to go where Alex has been dreaming of going.
Good old Tom. I assume that there's a large percentage of people who listen to this podcast that have seen the movies but not read the books.
Weirdos. Just kidding. Yeah.
I know that there's
Agreed.
Potentially in the works a movie that's going to cover some of the things missing in the movies, but I'm not too hopeful for that theatrical presentation.
There's going to be a Tom Bombadil in the movies?
Yeah, and the thing is there's already been an attempt at doing Tom Bombadil, and in a lot of ways they got him exactly wrong. So as far as I'm concerned, in the Rings of Power, and
did they make him like a clown figure,
they made
Goofy?
Him kind of like I didn't watch a lot of it, but they made him like Gandalf's tutor sort of thing. I understand why they're doing that, but there's some things about Tom that just doesn't track. So, as a
whoever's writing that movie, Alex Hale, you probably can find him online. He can come help.
Oh, I am no authority on the subject, but I do feel like I've been immersed in Middle Earth long enough that I can feel when things are off. And I just worry. I just don't trust writers these days. I think there's too much incentive for spectacle that truth becomes secondary. And when I say truth, I don't just mean correct opinion. I mean, maybe the access to truth is write a good story first. Maybe that's what number one needs to be, is write a good story, and not a good story based on the template of the hero's journey, ironically, or some sort of template that says, and this is what audiences like. Like, enough of the, what is it called when you get the panel of potential people to test a product, or
Oh, a focus group.
focus group. Enough of the focus group entertainment. We need people who are writing stories that are well versed in Norse mythology, I guess. I don't know. But even Marvel's attempt at that was just so sterilizing in my perspective. But Tom Bombadil, I don't think the fact that he was removed from the Peter Jackson movies was a mistake. I think that what Peter Jackson was doing is really just a sliver of the overall meaning of these books. The books are too big. The myth is too deep. You cannot, I know if you...
So you feel like he looked at Tom Bombadil and said, I can't do justice in a movie to this character. Better to skip over.
Exactly. And I think the testament to that perspective is how great those movies are.
Yeah.
If he thought that Tom was just too silly, he would. One of the things that he does is he kind of weaves some of Tom Bombadilisms into the movie later, at different parts, through the mouth of Gandalf, or even through the mouth of Treebeard.
Your voice inflection just then sounded Tom Bombadilish from the audio.
Hey ho, merry doll. No, but I love Tom Bombadil, and we're trying not to spoil. Dan and I have already read through. We're halfway through Two Towers right now.
Yeah.
But not spoiling. But Tom is an important part of the book in the way that the songs are. He's basically a song incarnate. And if there's the mythological applicability or meaning for the songs through The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, that same important depth that might on its surface seem not fickle.
Like just a song you'd be singing as you walk down the road?
Yeah. And not superficial. Well, there's the line in That Hideous Strength of the supreme kind of evil that looks banal to the uninitiated.
Well, I mean, so many of the Savior's teachings look relatively simple on their face. And anything that's tied to like the deepest truths, I think it's because they are so true, it's easy to see them at surface level and to never have to go and engage with it at all the levels underneath, maybe.
Yeah, so I don't want to end on the supreme evil without tying up that bow.
I just saw Darth Vader, but go ahead. I guess he wasn't supreme evil.
So, yeah, there's the line in That Hideous Strength where he says there's a type of evil that looks benign to the uninitiated or the uninitiate. And I think that there's the inverse of that. There's a type of extreme good that looks silly, might not be the right word. Maybe it's not facetious either.
Unengaged, almost
childish,
almost just like you're floating above it. Like you're just kind of
yeah. Yes, there's a type of good that you can see in people, like the best people I know. Not that they seem simple, not mentally simple, but they seem like they've simplified their lives. And I think that's true about Tom. Tom is the end point. If we're looking to see, does Tolkien believe in the necessity of a destination like Lewis does? I think Tom is evidence to the affirmative. Tom is what you could be. or Goldberry, if she's your personal analog, right? Tom is the masculine, purified. And I don't know if he went through a purification because he is the oldest and he has always been there. And it doesn't seem like he went through, maybe he had a journey. I don't know. That's somebody else's story, right? But Tom is, and Frodo does this. If you're paying attention when you read through The Lord of the Rings, Frodo uses Tom Bombadilisms and the perspective that he gains within the house of Tom Bombadil as a vision for the end of his journey. And so in a mythological, applicable, allegorical way, Tom is the meaning of The Lord of the Rings. You know, there's two types of people in this world.
Those who think that Tom Bombadil was the meaning in this book, and those who don't.
Those who remove Tom Bombadil and those who only talk about him. And I fall danger to, like, what else is there to talk about in The Lord of the Rings if not Tom Bombadil and Goldberry? Obviously, there's plenty.
If you're on team, they're just like a fun side show on the way to the mission of dropping off the ring at Mount Doom. You really have to grapple with how much time is spent and how unique this character is. And I can't say it, it's spoiled too much, but his clear that all things are subjugated, or like that he is the true master.
He's not the owner, but he's the master.
Yes.
And
he is part of all things that is.
That's right. So, as a kind of a teaser for Lord of the Rings, if you could go into reading these books, and Tom comes up pretty quickly, and this is a good teller weaving process. It's even a great comedian practice, is to give the meaning, the punchline, almost lead with it, and then the punchline that resolves everything is just a callback. And it's just going to be calling back. And so to get your mind into a space, get your heart into the space of the meaning of the mythology of the Lord of the Rings, Tom is the primer for that. Goldberry is the primer for that. And I feel bad every time I say Tom just by himself, because he is not whole without Goldberry. And Goldberry is not without Tom. And there's just like an idyllic presentation of even humans' place in the world that is represented by them. And it's one of those things. It's like, oh yeah, if you read it with that take, you might be like, oh, this is an interesting perspective on what domestic bliss might look like. But in its context, the more you yield yourself to that interpretation, it will grip you. It has gripped me.
Well, what you're saying all is lighting me up, because after they meet Tom and Goldberry, the rest of the journey, the rest of the entire mission, you have to think that if you were Frodo and you're on this journey and you met Tom and then went on, that you would be thinking about Tom and Goldberry every single day of that journey.
Yes.
And what you experienced and how it makes you almost doubt everything after it in a way. I'm trying not to spoil, but in that you have this huge mission that is everything, and all of Middle Earth depends on it. Yet what did I experience with Tom Bombadil and Goldberry?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, man. Bringing him up, and
I'm almost regretting that we already recorded. I was like, God dang.
Yeah, we already recorded our Tom Bombadil episode.
There is one line. So I threw this into Claude before we started to kind of jog my memory and cheat. So I do want to call out that I'm pulling this one line from Claude, but I loved that it highlighted this. One way it described Tom was festivity without anxiety. And obviously it's making the allusion to the Santa Claus character kind of in C.S. Lewis in Chronicles of Narnia. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The jovial Jupiter type thing. But festivity without anxiety. And that is something anxiety, we all are hearing that word in almost every setting, every podcast. I mean, it is, what do we say? The spirit of our age in a depressing way.
Yeah.
A little bit is our anxiety and our depression, right? And how someone who has that spirit of festivity, that is a perfect way to describe Tom Bombadil and also Santa Claus in a good way. What is there to be anxious about? Okay. And anxiety, a way to describe it is it's concern about what's going to happen in the future. And so Tom Bombadil is the perfect representation of someone who lives in what is most like eternity, the present. He he is the personification of the present. And he and it's not that he owns everything, and because I think that's the human drive to control anxiety, is to own everything. If I have all the financial security, if I own all the things, then I can control what happens tomorrow and how I eat. And yet God himself is trying to teach the children of Israel to eat manna every single day from him and to not store it. It's completely juxtaposed. It's a completely opposite way to approach anxiety than what the world is doubling down on. And I think we can learn from Tom Bombadil how we need to operate in our lives when it comes to anxiety. And I think that the more that we can grasp onto this, you will feel less anxiety.
Yeah, he's the perfect personification of a lot of what it meant to my burden, or my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Consider the lilies.
Yeah.
They don't work or toil. He is working. There is maybe I'm getting overly analytical and I'm trying to apply too much. But maybe what we see in Tom is the perfected man. He's not a man according to Middle Earth. He's not an elf either. He's not even a Maiar spirit. But he's Tom.
Well, going to your working, like he is working comment, like work is something that happens in the present.
He's not toiling.
In
he's
fact,
working.
when I start feeling anxious, one of the best remedies is just get to work.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about what the outcome's going to be tomorrow. Like, just work today. Do the work of today and let it all fall. Like,
right.
There's nothing I want for my own kids than for them to. I don't wish for them a perfect life and no trials and difficulties. And they might have a life full of more obstacles than I've even confronted. Health, whatever it is. But what I do wish for them is that they're not subjugated to the master of anxiety.
Yes.
That they don't have to, because that's a burden that it doesn't really matter what's going on in your life. You aren't free. You can have the perfect circumstance, but anxiety can still be your master.
Yeah. What is it? There's no problem so big that worrying about it can't make it worse.
Sorry, I don't know. I didn't walk in this morning with this on my mind, but this is why I love the book club.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, Tom. We talk in our episode later about husbandry and what it means what that word means and what it means to be the master without being the owner. And it seems like there's a threshold of you have to get past this thing. Maybe it's the night of infinite resignation. Beyond that is the night of faith. And Tom is a knight of faith. He's somebody who exists rather than schemes, I don't know, or even toils, right? He's what is up on top of the mountain, that destination, the glimpse of a righteous life.
Question: Tom isn't God.
No.
And where you say Tom is not the owner, he's the master, God is the owner.
Oh, yeah.
And the master.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some level of lack of applicability, right? So there's God, and then there's us.
Sorry, I just tried to get in, make an analogy. I tried to go for analogy, and I shouldn't.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. No. There is a God in Middle Earth, and it's not Tom. That's probably the best way to say it, because it's not like, if we're worried about analogy and allegory, it's like, well, then he applies that way to us. No, he doesn't. It's tricky. It's funny. Well, in the land of fairy, in the perilous realm, in this place where we're permeating the forms, or the ideal and the physical, that's kind of what Middle Earth represents in a lot of ways. It doesn't represent that, but that's what we can do with Middle Earth, with fairyland and the land of fairy, if that's what, what we kind of engaged with a lot in Narnia and other C.S. Lewis books. The idea, an idea becoming incarnate and living, it makes a little more sense in that realm. And maybe Tom is an idea or an ideal. He doesn't need to be, because in a lot of ways that's us. We're kind of an idea we were projected by the mind of God, if you want to look at it that way, into our existence to become little versions of him. And we didn't create ourselves, right? We were created. And this is tricky because I'm not a theologian, but there's some real, he's not breaking the rule of allegory to say that there's an idea or an ideal that's incarnate in his work in Tom. But luckily, from that perspective, the abstract ideas have a little bit more tangibility. You might call that magic. He might just be good natural magic in a similar way that the Ents are good natural magic, and magic in a way that's not supernatural, but it's natural. And sometimes in our modern mechanized, don't want to sound too much like a Luddite, but in our technology obsessed world, the things that will look magical are what real nature is, instead of what we've created. It's what God created. And our creations can blind us to the miraculous. It can make us think that there's no meaning in a star. It can make us think that that we can control everything and tame it by, not tame it, but own it and subjugate everything to our will. And Tom is mastery without subjugation. He's mastery without dominance. He's domesticity without domination.
You're giving me lots of allusions to the NICE and
right. So there's
and you really I think Tom Bombadil and Ransom in that hideous strength. I mean, they have the tie with nature. Anyways, lots of stuff going on there.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. The problem with bringing up Tom is I have a hard time talking about Tom and not over talking about Tom. But if you haven't started reading The Lord of the Rings yet, read it and read the songs.
And go slow when you get to Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, read the songs.
And Goldberry.
That's right. And I had one more thing I wanted to talk about.
The penguin.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this.
Well, I almost
wish
feel
there was a visual attached to the podcast somehow. But
there is for watchers on.
Oh yeah,
X,
go to YouTube or X.
On YouTube.
There you go.
That's right.
You got to link that video you shared.
Well, I'm going to play it right now.
Oh, good.
I'm going to play it.
Let's do it.
So there was this meme from earlier this year. It's actually from, I can't remember what the documentary is called. It's a Werner Herzog documentary about, I think it's something like explorations, like in the word anyway, or in the title. And they're observing penguins. And this, if you've probably seen it, but there was this one little clip about a penguin doing something that might in actuality, in the stars are burning balls of gas sense, might be just disoriented. But they're watching anyway. I'll play the video and the audio for this meme about a penguin going to the mountains.
One of them caught our eye, the one in the center. He would neither go towards the feeding grounds at the edge of the ice, nor return to the colony. Shortly afterwards, we saw him heading straight towards the mountains, some 70 kilometers away. Dr. Ainley explained that even if he caught him and brought him back to the colony, he would immediately head right back for the mountains. With 5,000 kilometers ahead of him, he's heading towards certain death. But why?
Because he has penguin dementia. Burning balls of gas.
No, but when I showed it to you, right, you had that contention.
That was my initial, like, yeah, the penguin's crazy.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, if you wanted to look at it that way, but the penguin, as far as I've ever I didn't experience that penguin. I experienced that penguin through a mythological representation to me, right? And as any good narcissist, if a story's ever told, I need to figure out, how does this apply to me, right? And why did this become a meme? Why did it? Why?
I've never heard the me and meme so much.
Oh, all memes are trendy and sticky because of how they apply to me.
Meanness.
But there is within that penguin this idea. It blew up, and it was funny because you could see online all these men sharing this. And the more adventurous women, I don't want to turn it into a battle of the sexes, but like there is something, all the tooks out there were posting this penguin. And I even posted it on our little group chat. And there's something about this penguin. And okay, burning balls of gas, the penguin walked and died because he was disoriented and didn't go. I think the scientists would tell me that that's what happened. But there's this longing for the mountain. And that both of these books, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, are a journey to the mountain. There is a symbol. We live in the shadow of mountains here where we're recording. And there's something about when you live next to a mountain and then you go somewhere without mountains, you feel exposed. And it's almost like disoriented. There's something about the call to the mountain. There's one version of that meme that that organ music in the background continues, and it shows this montage of all of these depictions in pop culture of people just doing or creating something that seems like it doesn't have any use. Think Reepicheep saying, use? What's the use? Right? And yeah, there might not be any use for it, or use that you know, or use that you can count on. It might be a hope that you'll ever come back, from this journey to Mount Doom. And even when Sam says, well, when we get back to the Shire, you could tell that Frodo, he's not that hopeful about it. He's going anyway. And there's two ways of looking at it. Sometimes that meme is called the nihilist penguin or nihilist penguin, depending on if you took a philosophy class and they made you pronounce it like you're speaking Latin. The nihilism of it is one perspective in which you could get all Nietzschean and say, well, you're just going to burn out and rage against the dying of the light. And really just, this is all then we're going to not exist anymore. And that is one way of looking at it. And at least if you're there, good. Okay. Go to the mountain. You're probably going to die on the way, but what else is there? You're just going to die
somewhere.
There's a call. The mountain is calling to you. And that penguin, if I project my me on that penguin, what is calling me to the mountain? And C.S. Lewis would say, if there's a desire that you have that can't be satisfied by this world, then you must be made for another world. Maybe the other world is on the top of that mountain, or beyond the mountain, or the sunrise is coming over like bricks from that mountain. And are you willing to walk on sharp grass with your ghosty feet up that mountain? Why? Oh, can't I just hide? I'm already transparent as a ghost anyway. Wouldn't it just be better to hide until I die? Sure. I mean, maybe. If that's what you desire, if that's your longing, right? Think of Out of the Silent Planet when there's the Hross says can't understand what ransom means by longing. He says, well, you could long for it, but you could never long for it. Wondalone and Hlunthalein. And one of those seems to be you could want something or enjoy a pleasure, but then there's this other longing. That's a longing that's teleological. It's this projected out into the future, not the future. It's just broader. It's meaning. It's the horizon. It's the mountain. And have you been able to be captured by that spirit that drives you to the mountain, that gives you meaning that you can't quite articulate? So you ramble on a podcast around in a circle until hopefully something grabs. And if you die in the process of doing it, it doesn't even matter. Death is not enough of an impediment for your expedition.
Like you're saying, you can go after the mountain with the Nietzschean ideology or process. But also in context, I liked the part of the video that we didn't hear is the guy talks about the penguins were either going to the breeding grounds or to the ocean to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this one penguin goes off to the mountains. And we're all going to die in the process of pursuing something.
Right.
And the logical choice for that penguin was to go to the breeding grounds or go eat. And yet we know something about our human condition, that we create false peaks and we climb those mountains and we get to the top and we are happy for a second because we achieved that. And immediately, almost immediately, we stick our flag on the next thing we need to achieve. And you can either die in that process, thinking you have a concrete mountain you're going after, when really you're just going to the breeding grounds or to eat, or you can follow that like sweeter, fourth dimensional, higher desire that really is out there that we all feel a pull towards, but doesn't make sense in the context if you're only seeing the three-dimensional.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bilbo's last verse of the song that he composes when he's in Rivendell and Frodo's on his journey out. I want to read the verse because I'm going to play it as our exit. It's going to be our outro to play
Sweet.
this verse. But his verse is, the road goes ever on and on. This is with the same pattern as that first version. Out from the door where it began, now far ahead, the road has gone. Let others follow it who can. Let them a journey new begin. But I at last, with weary feet, will turn toward the lighted inn, my evening rest and sleep to meet. At the top of that mountain is not just death. At least I hope. I hope it's a lighted inn. Now, the lighted inn that I see has Goldberry standing in the doorway. And within the walls of that lighted inn, heed no nightly noises. For Tom is there. And maybe I'm Tom. Hopefully. I think if I've done it right, then at the top of the mountain, my ghosty feet from the prickly grass and whatever rock and horrors in the halls of stone and all of that process has turned me into a Tom instead of just some wispy ghost. So, yeah, if like Pascal's wager, you can't think of any other reason to believe or to journey or to try to become more of a Took, go and you'll die. You're gonna die anyway. But I think there's a hope to seek. There is something to journey toward. And it's maybe the analogy is just whatever is going on in the house of Tom Bombadil.
And honestly, a lot of the hope and faith and even evidences for me were discovered walking the path,
Yeah.
not sitting at home. So get on the path.
Okay.
I love it.
We good?
Thanks, Alex.
We'll do our close and then
Yeah.
Bilbo will play us out.
Thank you for being in our book club. If you liked the show, please leave a 5-star review. And if you'd like to contact us with questions, comments, criticisms, or corrections, you can send us an email or voice memo at bookclub@mountainair.media, MTNAIR.media.
We promise we'll come back to C.S. Lewis, but in the meantime, check out our back catalog of episodes where we talk about your favorite C.S. Lewis fiction. Music for this episode was used with permission from Clamavi De Profundis. Check them out on YouTube and Spotify. And if you'd like to support their work, consider becoming a patron on their channel at Patreon. You can find links for those in the episode description. Okay, see you later.
Goodbye.
The road goes ever on and on, out from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, let others follow it who can. Let them a journey new begin, but I at last with weary feet will turn towards the lighted inn, my evening rest and sleep to meet.
The C.S. Lewis Book Club is sponsored by the Bowsaker Academy Self-Governance Initiative.
Because no one learns better than kids.